Biscuits and gravy. A true staple of Southern cuisine, it consists of soft dough biscuits and white gravy made from the fat from pork sausage. Yes, the fat, aka the flavor. They're said to have emerged sometime in the late 18th century as a cheaply prepared meal for laborers in the South. It's definitely not an everyday meal, but it's wonderful for the occasional brunch or just whenever you feel like having your taste buds explode. If you find this video at all useful, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me out so much, and I really appreciate it. We're going to start out by making our buttery, flaky buttermilk biscuits from scratch. We'll combine 2 cups of flour with 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar, then 1 teaspoon of salt. Go ahead and give your dry ingredients a little bit of a mix just to evenly disperse everything. For the next step, you can also use regular milk, but I find the best biscuits are made with good old buttermilk. So add about 3/4 of a cup. Next, we need cold butter. Yes, it needs to be cold, because we want to ultimately have flakes of butter throughout the dough, and we don't want them melted. We need them still intact. For many, many years, I used to dice butter with a knife, and you can do it that way. Totally fine. But it's honestly so much easier to use a grater. It will give us the perfect size butter pieces to work with. Go ahead and grate the cold butter, try to get it all in there, up to the last little bit. Next is the fun part. We're going to go in hands first and work the butter in. You'll find the dough to be a shaggy mess, and that's exactly what we want. What we don't want is to overmix. We're just combining everything at this point. Let me get some of this dough off my fingers, and this is what you should be looking for. Set that aside and lightly flour your surface. And we're just going to pour everything out on the counter. I'm going to corral all this dough and just bring it together to create a little rectangle. I'll make sure my sides are nice and straight. I use this cheap little bench scraper for just about everything. It makes lining up the sides of the dough super simple. Next, I'm going to pull out my long, hard rolling pin. Now, we're not rolling this flat. Don't do that. We're simply using the pen to lightly push down and compress the dough just a little bit. Give it a couple rolls, then we'll use our bench scraper to line up our sides. I'm going to fold the ends inward in thirds. And then we'll roll it out again. This is roll number 2. Lightly roll, press down, once again, fold in the ends. Give it a 90-degree turn, and we're going in for roll number 3. Line up the sides, then once again, fold the ends. What we're doing here is creating layers within the dough. It's going to give us these beautiful flaky biscuits, trust me. Here's roll number 4. I forgot to mention, sometimes it's easier if you put some flour on the rolling pin. It'll keep the dough from sticking. Line up the sides, then fold. Now we're going in for the 5th roll. By this point, the dough should be pretty cohesive, and you don't really need to use the bench scraper anymore. I'm going to give it one last little roll, bringing our total to 6. Then I'm going to shape this into a square. Personally, I think circle biscuits are overrated, so I'm making squares. This recipe will give you about 4 to 6 decently sized biscuits. You can probably get more out of that if you press it down further. But I'm only cooking for 2 people, so 4 biscuits is all I need. Simply slice down the center both ways, and let me show you what beautiful layers look like. Check that out. That is exactly what we want. Lastly, we'll brush a little buttermilk on the tops and stick these bad boys in the oven. A useful tip, bench scrapers are also super helpful during cleanup. It'll help to get up all those little bits of flour and dough and whatever else is left on your counter. Lay down some parchment, then place your biscuits on the baking sheet accordingly. Then we're going to bake these at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes or so, or until the tops are nice and golden brown. While that bakes, we will make our gravy. I'm just using regular breakfast pork sausage here that I bought from my local butcher. We'll open these little guys up and see what we're working with. Remember, I'm only cooking for 2 people, so you might want to adjust yours accordingly if you're cooking for more, so just a heads up. We'll take a quick peek in the oven just to see how our biscuits are doing, and they look good. We got some nice rise here. Once they have some nice color on top, take them out and set aside to cool. Back to the gravy. In a skillet, I'm just gonna add a touch of olive oil. We don't want large chunks of sausage, so I'm going to break these up with a spatula. Look at all that beautiful fat and grease. Once again, in the South, we just call that flavor. Once the sausage is just about cooked, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Mix that in until you no longer see any white. We want to cook off some of that flour taste. Then I'm going to add about 3/4 cup of milk and 1/4 cup of heavy cream. You can use just milk if you want, but the heavy cream really makes it just wonderfully creamy. Let that simmer for a little bit while scraping up some of those cooked bits of sausage that are stuck to the pan. All those bits and grease and fat is what's going to make this gravy special. Then we'll come in with a little bit of salt and pepper. Everyone is different when it comes to salt, so just add a little and taste it. If it needs more, add more. Then I'm going to add in my secret ingredient, which is tahini. It just gives it that extra little kick that I love. Let that reduce and gradually become thicker. This is what we're going for here. This is the ideal viscosity of sausage gravy. We're almost there. All we have left to do is plate. Top those beautiful flaky buttermilk biscuits with a healthy serving of sausage gravy. I like to add a little more tahini, some fresh parsley, and voila, biscuits and gravy. As always, ingredients will be listed in the description. Thank you all so much for watching.